Everybody, this is Grant from State of the Spark, and I am super pumped for today's show because today we're going to be dealing with something that I think y'all are dealing with, and that is your new God-given gift of omniscience. But there's kind of a blowback going on that I consider dissociation, and we're going to be talking a little bit about how to reground yourself in this world that's going on so you don't feel like you're running from one thing, running from the next, how to overcome that. We're going to be talking about dealing with dissociation, but before that, we're going to be talking about other news. News that will actually ground you. Listen, we're touching a lot of things day in and day out in our work lives and in our family lives and in our job lives, and it feels like there's a lot going on. And we can actually feel like we're on top of things, but we can also feel lost in everything. Other news is meant to kind of change your perspective, remind you that there's a lot more going on out there, and for us to feel small with full of awe and wonder again. We're going to be covering other news, but before we cover today's lesson, before we cover other news, you know what we're doing. Morning cup of gratitude. What are you grateful for? What's getting you pumped? What gets you out of bed? What are you excited about? I want to hear in the comments, if you catch the show now or later in the day, I want to hear what you're grateful for. What fills you up with gratitude? What basically returns you to a sense of awe, inspiration, wonder, and excitement about being alive? And I'm gonna start. I am absolutely most grateful that I'm going to be visiting a bunch of interesting people this week. Yeah, this is the thing I'm most excited about. I'm trying to be low-key about it, but I managed to get my tickets put together, a hotel put together, coordinated, and we're going to finally be meeting up for the first time in real life with our partners for Not Crypto Bros in New York City for NFT NYC, which is basically a web tech NFT event in New York City. It's like the dominant one. And I'm going to be running into my co-host from Not Crypto Bros. We're super excited about that. But B, there's so many other cool people that I get to meet up with and connect with and hear what they're working on, hear what they're focused on. Super excited that I'll actually be able to connect with those folks. So that's what I'm most grateful for. I'm grateful for meaningful work. As soon as I get done with the show, I get to dive into getting people's web presences up and running, focus on my businesses, focus on my real estate. There's so much going on that I am super grateful for. What are you grateful for? What gets you up in the morning? What gets you out of bed? What gets you absolutely pumped? Ooh, let me pull that up. Boom, there we go. I want to hear, because if you can't start your day with gratitude, what are you even doing? How do you start if you don't start with gratitude? And most people just meander their way through. Let's be honest. That's okay. But I'm here to re-anchor you to full of gratitude. There we go. Oh, let's mute that. Perfection. Now, let's talk about, but before anything, if you need someone who needs a little bit of encouragement, if you need someone who needs a little bit of an uplift or to start their week right, do me a favor. Tag or share this to them, because I want to fulfill my mission, which is igniting lives of explosive significance, connecting with people, giving them a bit of a reframe to not only survive what's going on around them, but to thrive, to launch. So I'm Grant, and I help people experience freedom, but if you could share this, like, subscribe, or share it to them, I really appreciate it. Let's talk about other news. UnderWorld. If you saw the movie Waterworld in whatever date it was, maybe it was the 90s, maybe it was the early thousands. I don't even remember when Waterworld was, but I love the idea. I grew up in Florida on the coast, and I love the ocean. And so when I saw Waterworld, I thought, that looks awesome. But a lot of people were kind of freaked out about it. If you ever thought about, well, Waterworld would never happen here, think again. Scientists, to cause a little bit of trepidation for you, scientists have found that about 400 miles under the Earth's crust, there might likely be an entire other layer of ocean that would cover the entire Earth, greater than the oceans we currently have. Now, this is nutso, but let's talk about this real quick. You see, stored inside of, oh, there's my dude, Jarrett Carpenter. Boom, how you doing? Good morning, sir. I hope you're doing fantastic. For everyone who doesn't know, follow Jarrett Carpenter at More Than Blockchain, and you could follow us at Not Crypto Bros, so go check that out. So UnderWorld, is there an entire other ocean under the mantle about 400 miles down? There is about another ocean stored inside something called ringwoodite. Now, why do I bring this up? Number one, I'm not bringing it up to terrify new oceans. Yes, new oceans. Not to terrify anyone, Jared, or anyone else watching, but to remind you that there are things that are ancient and interesting on this planet, both in the interwebs, off the interwebs, and around us. And there is likely another ocean about 400 miles down. You see, in the mantle, there's a mineral called ringwoodite. And ringwoodite has a crystalline structure that could store a lot of water. Well, scientists discovered this because they were tracking earthquakes. And they were tracking earthquake aftershocks. And what they were finding about these aftershocks is not only were there aftershocks, but at a certain layer under the mantle, there was shock waves. And if you know anything about shock waves, they behave like water. And this blew scientists away. They studied it further, and they realized there's probably an ocean. Now, for anyone who's ever read an ancient text, and listen to me, you got to follow C.S. Lewis's advice. C.S. Lewis was the author of Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, as well as a lot of other wonderful books. But one thing he said is between every new piece of material you read, you should read an ancient piece of material. Go read an ancient book like the Epic of Gilgamesh or the Bible. And they all talk about floods. And it's funny to think, well, maybe these things just happen in Mesopotamia. But when there's an ocean that's 400 miles under the earth that with a little bit of heat could steam up and rise and actually come to the surface, you start to think about some of these ancient texts might have something more to them. In fact, the scientists in this paper wrote that there is probably what they call a whole earth water cycle, that over a given period of time, the entire earth floods the entire earth again, and then it slowly seeps back into the mantle and the ringwoodite. Now, will this happen in our time? Most likely not. Will this happen ever again? Who knows? But if you want it, the link is in there. Let's talk about the markets so that you're not afraid of them. I talk about the markets not because I want you to get your blood boiling or rise on any reason. In fact, as a lot of the talking heads out there talk about the markets, they often want you to panic, or they often want you to go invest. They want you to take some action. I want you to see it and just nod and remind yourself of what your investment plans are. So I want to desensitize you to both the TradFi markets and the DeFi markets. So we're going to share this real quick. The Dow is at 33,600. Listen, when I reported on this last week, is at 33,500. It has moved negligibly. When I reported on this 5 weeks ago, it was at 33,700. They might tell you the markets are up. They might tell you the markets are down. But I'm here to tell you the markets are largely sideways. The S&P 500 is at 4,100. Last week it was at 4,135. Has not moved hardly at all. The NASDAQ at 13,100. Last week when I reported, it was at 13,200. The markets are largely sideways. Yes, we might report a big bump and a little or a big dip, but largely speaking, they're sideways. So when people tell you to panic, I want you to go, I'll keep watching it. I'll keep to my investment plan. I'll do okay. Real quick in DeFi, let's talk about it. In DeFi, Bitcoin's at 28,330. Last week when I reported, it was at 28,350. It moved 20 points on 30,000 points, which is negligible. Ethereum's at 1,850. Last week when I reported, it was at 1,809. Cardano's at 38 cents, roughly 39 cents. Last week when I reported, it was at 39 cents. XRP or Ripple is at 50 cents or 0.506 cents. And last week when I reported, it was at 51 cents. The markets are sideways. I'm not calling financial advice. I'm calling emotional advice. Calm down. Stick to your plan. Invest the way you think you should invest. Don't be reactive to the markets. That's the only reason I share the markets with you. I share you so that you start the week off before the talking heads do it Monday morning at 8 on your ride to work or however you get your news. And you just don't panic. You say, no, I heard on Spark Sites that everything's about sideways. Thanks for sharing. And move on. Let's talk about horse blinders for humans. Yes, something called quiet frames. A Swedish engineer by the name of Torun Widu, and I'm butchering this poor person's name. I apologize. That's the gringo in me. Torun Widu is a Swedish engineer who was constantly dealing with stress and exhaustion, which is funny because often you hear about Swedish workers being very happy workers. But he was particularly stressed, and he took some time off from work, came back from work, and even though he had felt rested, felt completely stressed again. He decided to create something called visual noise canceling glasses. and got with industrial design consultancy by the name of Myra, and they invented these glasses. Now, they're very interesting, and this fact is interesting that most brain exhaustion has because of all of the brain processing power that's going on throughout an entire sustained day, which is why I recommend naps. 20-minute naps will save your life. Trust me, I'm a professional napper. But if 60 to 80% of the brain processing power is going to the visual cortex, if you could start shaving off the visual stimuli you get in a single day, you can start getting some of your brain power back. And that's what Thoringer did. He invented these visual noise canceling glasses by starting to reduce the visual inputs in a single day. They call them quiet frames, and it eliminates peripheral distractions and minimalizes flickering from overhead and kind of keeps you in a visual bubble so that you're looking at your screen or looking down at your work. And when people walk by or walk to the water cooler, you don't get those peripheral things. This is known as horse blinders, people. They decided to make these horse blinders, but they decided to make them just a little more tasteful. If you want to see what visual noise canceling glasses look like, I wouldn't be entirely opposed to these, especially if I lived in a metropolitan center, but I put the link in the comments below. You can see these. And let me tell you something. Today, we're talking about dealing with omniscience. We're talking about dissociation and regrounding ourselves so that we can be more effective humans. There's a lot of information going on, and this isn't a bad idea. Maybe it's time for human horse blinders. Let's talk about my biz updates very quickly, and we'll move forward from there. Spark sites, I reported last week we were trying to get into the fractional CMO role with another company. They delayed, and now actually my schedule's filled up quite a bit, so I might be pulling back from offering the fractional CMO role to a company through Spark sites. But we are adding the niche of focusing some of our efforts. We have several niches, and every business should have several niches. It doesn't mean you don't serve other people. It means your marketing efforts are targeted towards a certain group because you have an affinity for that group. For those who don't know, I have an affinity for the crypto and Web3 space, but web tech in general. So I will be actually launching into the crypto website niche with the website company. In real estate, I get the clear to close, hopefully today. A clear to close is a notification that you get the thumbs up, all the financials are in place, all the financing is ready to go. You are going to get your financing in place, and then in a given date in the coming weeks, you're going to sign off and actually move forward from there. And then trust Twitch to give me some spam. Boom, the price is lower than any competitor. Thank you. So that's our real estate investments. And once I get the clear to close, which should happen today, then a lot of things start happening. I have to book Wi-Fi and internet. I have to book utilities. I have to start looking for renters and planning on a move and renting a truck and moving furniture in. And there's a lot of other things, but you usually don't do that until after the clear to close. So that's what's going on there. And then finally, in the speaking and basically an action that's tying all these together, as I mentioned before, this week I'm super excited to be going to NFT NYC, which is a business move and will be a deductible expense. We're going to go there and meet several people in the web tech space. We're going to Stump Nation. Good morning. How are you doing? Hope you're doing fantastic. But we'll be going to NFT NYC, connecting with a lot of people, which ties together the website company because we're focusing on the niche of cryptocurrency companies, focused on content creation like Not Crypto Bros and More Than Blockchain and several of the other content creators we do, but it ties together a lot of things. And that's going to be a big capstone, cornerstone event. And that just tees off some of the other events that go on this week. Let's talk about so much seems like it's going on. Let's talk about dealing with omniscience and regrounding yourself for success. We know that we should be focusing. Focusing stands for follow one course until successful. And we know that we should be doing this. Boom. Stump Nation says they've been subbed to our YouTube channel, to my YouTube channel for over a year, but never even streamed. I stream nearly every Monday, my friend. And then also on Tuesday afternoons with Not Crypto Bros, if you want to hear what's going on in the crypto space. And then intermittently, we do Friday Finances, where we talk about financial freedom and our real estate investments. And really, this channel is about freedom, personal freedom, financial freedom, and time and location freedom. And so thank you for dropping by, Stump Nation. I'll make sure that I sub to you and make sure that we'll follow, and let's chat sometime. So what we're dealing with is this. We know that there is so much overwhelm going on today. We have moved out of what we've called the information age, and I believe that we are actually in what we call the omniscience age. And the omniscience age is this. If you don't know what the word omniscience means Omniscience means all-knowing. Now, this is a godlike trait, and it's a trait that we often ascribe to deities. Omniscience, to know everything. Right now, every single piece of human knowledge, I believe, can be found on the internet. And if there's a new thought that happens today, like I just mentioned, the omniscience age, it will be ever present on the internet right now through this live, but maybe Stump Nation actually shares this thought with a friend. Hey, we're not in the information age anymore. We're on the omniscience age. I heard this from Grant over here. Check out his channel. We're in the omniscience age, and that means every piece of new human knowledge is being added to the internet real time. Every new thought is happening possibly on a discussion that's happening on the internet, so it's captured there real time. The internet, really the human species, is actively a single organism, and we have bonded in the oneness. Now, that's flaky, and we can talk about that. Stump Nation says, oh, dang. So if we're in the omniscience age, the one thing that is difficult is for the individual human to process this information. And if you're feeling overwhelmed or stressed out, you might have a handful of goals and they're not coming to pass. Largely, I believe, is because as individuals, the technology of omniscience has surpassed the individual's human's ability to process it, which is why something like ChatGPT was so timely. ChatGPT is timely, and if you haven't used it yet, go use it because it doesn't have a lot of visual data. It doesn't have a lot of ads to sift through, and it doesn't require that I think through and process 5 or 6 different search results and then decide for myself what's going on. ChatGPT synthesizes all of them for us and just gives us the answer so that we can just assume that assumption. That conclusion's about 80% accurate, and we can move forward in our daily life. ChatGPT is the new cyborg brain component that has allowed us to process this omniscience. We've been overwhelmed with Google search results. We don't even want to do it. So all of us are dealing with this, and we're barely getting by. We're starting to feel significantly overwhelmed by this. And then now include telepresence, omnipresence. So if we have one godlike trait in our lifetime, it's omniscience, and that has come to us, and we're having a difficulty processing that as individuals. We have all our goals, but we don't know what to do. Now we have too many options. I remember back in the early 90s, I would gather up newspapers and then gather up internet bulletin boards and try to read everything so that I had more options. We call this optionality. But now I have too many options, and I need to know of a way to start limiting the options so I know what direction I can take. Stump Nation says, yeah, I'd be using ChatGPT like Jarvis. And if you've seen Stump Nation, there are plenty of services that are becoming Jarvis. Hundreds of AIs are coming on, or AI businesses and tools are coming online daily, and they've only been open since November 2022, barely 6 months. And these are good tools. These are powerful tools, and I'm a big fan of them. But I do notice that there's a negative blowback going on in the average individual, and it's this. We're starting to have a dissociation with our daily lives. Sometimes we're trying to live in these tools to keep up with them. And we let our daily life, our job, our responsibilities go a little bit. And then we get frustrated and we flip back to our daily responsibilities. And then we feel ourselves drifting behind even by the day of what's going on out there. And it's creating a dissociation. So not only are we struggling with the overwhelm of dealing with the fact that we're in the omniscience age, on top of that, we're having a dissociation. A good example of this dissociation is this. I heard someone say once, there's a major dissociation of people going on with work. When they're at work, all they can think about is the responsibilities and the things going on at home. So their work isn't that great. But when they're at home, all they can think about is the work that they didn't really do effectively and they're going to have to catch up with on tomorrow because their brain wasn't in the work, so they're home thinking about work. So when you're at home, you're thinking about work. When you're at work, you're thinking at home, and you do neither extraordinarily well. This is a type of dissociation and lack of being present. So if you're already dealing with omniscience and you're trying to keep up not only with locationally and types of work, now you're thinking about the future and the present, and you're thinking about them at the wrong time. When you're moving on things in the future, you're thinking about the present. When you're in the present, you're thinking about things of the future, and you have a major dissociation. Our effectiveness is down, our happiness is down, and our focus is down. So all of your financial freedom goals are all over the place, and nothing is being accomplished fully. Now, we start thinking, I got to cut away. This is the season of no, which is a thing I and my friend Jarrett have started talking about. Jarrett and I follow him at More Than Blockchain, have started talking about the season of no, and that's a hat tip towards Andrew Hormozy. We're going to start saying no to more and more things. That's one way to do it. But there's another way that I believe we can reground ourselves, participate in what's going on in the future, but also be grounded in the present so we're more effective. We know that we're moving measurable progress towards our goals. I heard this once: success and the feelings of success. Success is a feeling. You never obtain success. Success is an emotional state where you have obtained the feeling, not necessarily the outward product. Success, the definition I heard once, success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. I like that definition. To wake up on a day and work hard towards a goal in a focused manner, hopefully with some degree of deep work that fulfills you, and ending the day and go, I think I made progress. It was difficult, it was stressful, but I think I made progress. You connected with your health and fitness. You connected with healthy, happy relationships. You did work you enjoy, and you had some degree of spirituality. I call this the TLE, a freedom framework from State of the Spark for life success and fulfillment, the TLE, the total life experience. So how can we solve for feeling dissociation with omniscience? Here it is. It's an acronym called MIND, M-I-N-D. You know I got me some acronyms, and I got them for you because acronyms help us remember things. M-I-N-D. M, please meditate. If you pray, pray. But whether you're Christian or whether you're non-Christian, whether you're atheist or agnostic, make sure you meditate. Meditation is different than prayer. If 60 to 80% of our brain is getting exhausted with the visual stimuli around us, by closing your eyes and meditating and going on eternally, you not only limit the visual stimuli, even for a few moments, you create a pattern interrupt to all the distractions that are pulling you, and that pattern interrupt recenters you on your internal life. You see, whether you're operating in the virtual space, in an Oculus Rift, in the Twitter sphere, we're calling this the metaverse. People are spending more and more time in Twitter, more and more time in their social platforms, more and more time on streaming services, more and more time on feeds, more and more time in virtual reality, VR, more and more time in AR, augmented reality. And we don't even really keep the tabs on our address. I had a spiritual mentor who said once, I could teach you how to, and hear me out, bear with me on the flakiness of this. My spiritual mentor, Bud Hollowell, at one point said, I can teach you how to astrally project, but that's not the real joy. You got to remember where your address is or you're going to lose track of yourself. And he said this about spirituality, but this is true of your avatar. If you have an avatar that's deeply embedded in Twitter, don't forget your address. Don't forget where your meat suit lives, where your body lives. Re-anchor to your body. How can we do that? In this acronym MIND, start with M. Meditate. Meditation pulls you out of this space. Shut down all your feeds or step out of the room. Step outside into the sunshine or into the weather. Breathe deeply and learn how to meditate. We could talk about meditation another time. We could talk about Stump Nation says, cool mentor. Yeah, this guy was awesome. His name, Bud Hollowell, interesting cat. He wrote this book right here called The Quantum Gateway, phenomenal book. I recommend it, Stump Nation. Thanks for asking. I really appreciate that. But learn to meditate. If you're a technologist, especially if you're a technologist, you need to learn how to meditate. If you're a naturalist and you're in the woods all the time, you're getting this natural grounding. But if you're operating in any meta space at all, you're going to have to come out, breathe some fresh air. We call it touching grass. If you're spiritual, I call it touching papyrus, right? Whatever it is, it builds an internal anchor. And if you know how to anchor to yourself internally, you build yourself up because we call it an internal locus of control. Your goals live inside of you. Your hopes, your identity, it lives inside of you. And the good news about that is it regrounds you to the physical present, the IRL, but it also equips you to stay grounded as you foray into these meta spaces, as you go into the metaverse, Decentraland, or the sandbox, or the video games you play, and play quite seriously, or the Twitter spaces and social spaces, or Zoom calls you're on. You can stay grounded with yourself if you have a robust internal life, and you can only nurture that through prayer and meditation. But in this instance, M in mind stands for meditate. The I in this acronym MIND stands for invest. The most important thing in this planet is the relationships. If you go into the meta spaces, again, your Zoom calls, your Twitter spaces, your virtual reality or your AR reality, if you go into these spaces and only view these as dehumanized avatars, you're going to act different. You're not going to be authentic. And if you know how to nurture and practice nurturing relationships in the real space with the people you're with, who was the 60s singer, a songwriter that wrote Love the One You're With? Love the people you're with in your IRL space. Know how to be a local somewhere in a coffee shop. Know how to be a local in a post office. It doesn't matter if it's your ideal city or town. Go be that person. Invest. Don't be a consumer of relationships. Be a creator of a relationship. We talk about being a creator versus a consumer in social spaces, social media spaces, in the meta spaces. We also need to be a creator, not a consumer in our IRL relationships. You're always going to invest more in a relationship than you get out of it. But it creates over time a solid network. If you follow Metcalfe's law, you will see this network of relationships expand in your real world. And if you know how to invest in those relationships in the real spaces, IRL, try to nurture the same depth of relationship in your meta spaces. My trip to NFT NYC this week, I'm going to be meeting in real life with people that I've been doing business with for over a year and a half and have never met in person. And it's a little nerve-wracking. I've never met these folks, but I am certain that I will like them because I've invested in those relationships, taking WhatsApp calls at 8 at night, nurturing them through the highs and lows of their personal relationships. It's not just avatars that I've dehumanized, but I've rehumanized the virtual people, which parallels the same exact skills that I should be nurturing in real life. M stands for meditate. I stands for invest in relationships. N. Now, I'm going to take your depth of relationships one step further. The N stands for need your relationships. And this counts for the meta spaces and in real life. You have to need your relationships. I believe you should be an investor in relationships. You will give more than you get nearly always. So you shouldn't take it as a notch against these people if they don't necessarily reciprocate at the same pace. But one step further is need. Though we invest in others and we're giving, we make ourselves intentionally vulnerable when we need these people, when we ask for help. We make ourselves vulnerable for them to say, no, I'm too busy. We make ourselves vulnerable for them to say, no, I've got to get with my IRL family. We make ourselves vulnerable. You have to get vulnerable to actually connect with people, whether it's virtually or really. M-I-N, we have to meditate to have a strong internal locus of control. We have to invest deeply in the relationships, but if you want to take your relationships, both virtual and real, deeper, you have to make yourself need them and make yourself vulnerable. Are you having a move? Ask them for help. Are you going through something in your life? And yes, you could sit in your own room alone ruminating about it and process it yourself, but you should actually call a friend that you haven't hung out with before and say, hey, I just need to talk to somebody. Make yourself intentionally vulnerable. And lastly, do. Do together. M-I-N-D, do together. This is all for naught if it doesn't amount to action taking. And I mean this about my virtual relationships. Get in a DM. Take that DM relationship into a Zoom call. And in that Zoom call, make a presentation and pitch to do something together. Build a business together. Build a YouTube channel together. Do a show together. Do something. But also make sure you take that same course of action in real life. Go to the park together. Go to coffee together. Build something together. Invite them to build a YouTube channel together. Whatever it is, make sure you do something together and throw in together. Life gets rich when you move forward together. M-I-N-D, meditate so that you have an internal locus of control that works in real life or virtually. You are you. And it's not just your meat suit, but it's not just your avatar. And to get integrated across all of those spaces and all of those platforms, have a strong internal life. Meditate, pray, journal, but meditate. Invest in relationships. Create more than you consume in your relationships. Give. N, make yourself need other people. Soften yourself. You don't just need to be hard. I have a philosophy, even a tattoo, Nemo Venit. It means nobody's coming, and I have to be strong enough to handle all this alone. But that doesn't mean I have to be so cold I don't invite the people that serendipitously come across my life. D, do things together. It doesn't have to just be work. It has to be authentic. But do things together. That's what I have for you today. MIND. Remember this acronym. Remember to meditate. Remember to invest in other people. Remember to need other people. Remember to take the final step and do things with other people. Get the invite. Offer to do things together. And I present for your consideration. You will find a restedness in your brain. More importantly, you will find a support structure in others that you can move fluidly from the IRL to the virtual spaces, from dealing with the overwhelm of omniscience and telepresence, and you will slowly see this dissociation, this dissociative disorder that most of us are nurturing to be one thing in one space and another thing in another space. I think you're going to see that if you enact on MIND, meditate and invest in other people, need other people, do things with other people in both spaces the same way, you'll see those walls coming down and you'll see more riches coming. Aussie says, boom, let's keep doing things together. Good morning, Aussie. I look forward to seeing you this week. I look forward to working together the rest of this week. That's what I have for you. Why am I talking about any of this? Why do we talk about being healthier mentally? Why do we talk about financial freedom? Why do we talk about internal freedom and location freedom and time freedom? Why do I touch on any of that? Because the world, more and more, needs more and more grounded people that can move fluidly in and out of these worlds, that can exemplify a freedom that starts first internally and then slowly moves its way externally, and more importantly, is free to enact more with others. I call this the mission, igniting lives of explosive significance, starting with your own. Have a great day.